Hello everyone. I'd like to talk to you about some more material from Chapter 2. We talked about increase and decreasing in the last video. Now we're going to talk about the relative maxima and minima. And just conceptualize, if you're increasing and then you come to what we could call a peak, then you start to decrease. And what we're doing is we're just describing different parts of the graph. So we talked about increasing and decreasing. Now we're going to talk about where the maximum values and the minimum values are on our graph. F of C is a relative maximum if C, comma, F of C is the highest point in some open interval. Well, we should know or recall that whenever we're looking at something, F of X is a way of saying Y. We're not using X in here because we're talking about a specific point. So your book has chosen to use C. So what we have here is we're saying that the value of Y is a relative maximum, meaning it's bigger than the other points around it. It's relative to the other points around it. If the coordinate, so this is simply a coordinate, x comma y. Remember, this is input, this is output. This is independent, this is dependent. So whatever x is, in this case C, it's going to be f of C, is the highest point in some open interval. An open interval simply means that we do not have a range of values given to us. It's just the entire graph that we're looking at, and we're breaking it down into pieces. That is for maximum. Now for minimum, f of c is a relative minimum if c, f of c is the lowest point. And it's relative. It's the lowest point amongst all the other points around it in some open interval. Again, this is x comma y. This is just a point on the graph. And if we could look down here at our graph to be able to illustrate, f of c is a relative maximum if c, f of c is the highest point. Well, here's c sub 1, and I go up and I find my y value, f of c sub 1, and that's that point right there. This point is relatively larger or greater or higher than the other points around it. This is the maximum point. We would be increasing as we go along. We would hit a peak and then we would start to decrease, and that brings us to a minimum. If c, f of c, so here is c being our x value, c sub 2, and there's my y value, f of c sub 2, and that is its coordinate. And it is the lowest point in some open interval. This is the lowest point. We went from decreasing to increasing, so there is a low point right there, and it's low relative to the other points around it. Algebraically speaking, my maxima, think of it as a peak, a mountaintop. Okay, so my maxima, f of c is greater than f of x in an interval for all x such that x does not equal c. This is simply saying that this point is bigger than all the other points around it. In the case of what we're talking about, we're calling these max and mins f of c. So that maximum point, that highest point, is greater than all the others around it. And the same is true for minima. Think of minima as being valleys or troughs in your graph, sloping down. F of c will be less than f of x in an open interval for all x, such that x does not equal c. And what that's saying is that lowest point is going to be lower than all the other x's around it. Main thing with this is not complicated. Just don't mix up your x and y's in what we're talking about. So let's look at an example. What you can do is you can pause the video and look at this and see if you can come up with the answers. We're going to find the relative maxima, the relative minima, intervals of increase, intervals of decrease. And there's some little notes for you so that you don't forget. Again, remember, x comma y. Alright, we'll go ahead and look at that and then unpause the video after you get your answers. Okay, so the relative maxima. Well, I can look at my graph and I can be able to identify things. I'm going to have a point here and a point here. Those are my relative maxima. And now I need to find the coordinates of the relative maxima. So I look at the x-axis, that's a -3, and -3, 8. And for my other one, it was 9 and 5. That's my relative maxima. Minima, here and here. Find the coordinates, -2, 4, and -5, 5. My interval of increase, remember that looks like positive slope. My line is increasing from left to right. Interval of increase, well, it looks like I'm increasing from here to here. I know I should be increasing because I have a relative minima right there, so I should be increasing on this point. Okay, that coordinate is, or the interval is a -7 to -3, and I use parentheses because it doesn't include that point, because that point also going up that way. And then increase, see, I'm decreasing now because I came to a maxima, so then I decrease, I hit a minima, so now I have to increase. So I have increasing along the interval of 4, 9. Intervals of decrease, they're going to lead to, my intervals of decrease are going to lead to minima because I'm decreasing. And that interval, we'll call it infinity. Interval of decrease will be -infinity, always parenthesis with infinity symbol, you don't contain it, to -7. And then I decrease from my maximum down to my minimum point. So I have a -3 over to a 4. Go. And one other. Because I increase here, I go from a minimum to a maximum, and then therefore I'm turning around and I'm going to decrease again. And this interval is from 9 to infinity. If you look at how we have this structured, what I have is, if I have a number line, and I arbitrarily just look at it, I am decreasing to begin with. This is -infinity. And it goes all the way over here to say -7. That's where it stops. I know that since I was decreasing, I am going to have a min value somewhere in there. And then I know that I'm going to increase, and I will increase over to a -3. And then I know I should have a maximum value. And then I know that I should decrease, and I'm going to go over to 4, and then I should have a minimum value. And then I'm going to increase, and I will have a maximum value over to 9. And then I know that I'm going to decrease all the way to infinity. So you can break down your graph, and just how I just kind of sketched it without knowing the coordinates gives me an understanding of how that graph flows. Okay. Please continue to watch or look at the practice problems from the publisher. Structure your homework. Think about it critically, what you're doing. Reason through it. Work it the same way each time. Talk to yourself while you work the problems. Think about them. Good luck with the rest of your homework.